Hello students, hope you guys are doing well at your home and you have started preparing for your exams, and these video sessions are helping you out for your preparation. So we have already started the unit 5 in last session, and in that we are going with the first part, that is AngularJS. We have seen the introductory part of AngularJS, then also very important MVC architecture for the same. In this session, we are going to see the directives, expression and controllers that make the AngularJS extended HTML version. Okay, so we'll firstly start with the AngularJS directives. The AngularJS directives are used to extend HTML, and these are special attributes starting with ng prefix. The directives are markers on a document object element that tell AngularJS to attach a specified behavior to that DOM element, or even transfer the DOM element and the children. Okay. In short, it extends the HTML. Then the Angular directives for making the static pages into a dynamic pages we use mostly. By using directives we can do so without modifying the code manually. Means if you want to make that particular static page into a dynamic web page, and you don't want to do it by changing the code and reloading the web page again. So instead of that, you can directly use the directives that are provided by the AngularJS. The directive may be built in, or it can be custom directive, that is you can make it by your own. Okay. So it is an easy way to go with the AngularJS directives. Okay, they can be placed in element names, attributes, class names, as well as comments. Okay, directives are defined with camel case names such as ng-app and invoked by translating the camel case name into a snake case. Okay, so we use the special characters while using the directives. For example, you can use dash or underscore. For example, ng-app in if you want to use in HTML, then we will write it as, we will start the HTML tag, and after HTML we will use space ng dash app and close that HTML tag. Okay, so this can be a way to represent directive. Then most of the directives in AngularJS are starting with ng prefix, where ng stands for Angular. Okay, and the AngularJS includes various built-in directives. In addition to this, you can create custom directives for your application. We can use it as per our needs. Most of the directives are built in, that include ng-app, ng-init, ng-model, ng-repeat. Okay. So these are custom directives actually. If you want to start any directive, you mostly use the div tag. Okay, so the div tag will start, and then you use the particular directive name. You can, for example, you are using ng bind method. It is not necessary always to start the same directive with ng prefix only. You can also use x dash or data dash for starting your directives. For example, if you want to use ng bind directive, then you can also write it as data dash ng dash bind, or it can also be written as x dash ng dash bind. Okay, the meaning of ng bind or data dash ng dash bind or x dash ng dash bind is same. Okay, they all are used to perform the same functionality. So there are basically two types of AngularJS directives. First is built-in directives. The built-in directives are predefined in a framework. We can directly use it to offer functionality to our application. And second is custom directives. The custom directives are self-created directives. They are not predefined, but we can define it on our own as per our requirement. So we will discuss built-in directives here. So the built-in directives are ng app directive first, second ng init, third ng model, and fourth ng repeat. Okay, so we'll see one by one. First is ng app. So this directive is used to initialize an AngularJS application. It is also used to load various AngularJS modules in AngularJS. Okay. So when the web page is loaded or initialized, the ng app directive gets initialized as well. Okay. The different AngularJS modules are loaded by this directive in the application. Yeah. In the example, we can see how it can be introduced in the application that we have used. The div, that is the directory type, then div space ng dash app equals to attribute name. Okay, there you have given double quotes that are blank. You can define it by your own. You can write there a link or any another attribute if you want. Then after completing your code, close that div tag. Okay, so this is the simplest form of initializing ng app directive. And second is ng init directive. The ng init directive is used to initialize the application data, and it is also used to put values to the variables that are used in the application. Okay, so you can give the value to the variable name in init method. For example, if you are using any variable with the name, you will provide the value for that name, for example abc xyz, like that, with the help of init directory. Okay, so how it is used we'll see with the example given. You can see the div, then ng app, it is kept blank, then ng init equals to first name, and the value is given as John. Okay, so you can see how it is defined. ng init, ng dash init equals, in double quotes you have provided first name, but after first name you haven't closed double quotes. You are putting the value of variable as well with the init method only. Okay, so how you are writing it? You have started the ng init equals to, in double quotes, first name equals to single quote. In single quote you are providing the value for variable. Here your variable name is first name and value for that variable name is John. Okay, so John is written in single quotes, and after writing that value of variable, that means here it is John, after writing the value for variable you are closing the variable double quote. Okay, and then close that opened div tag. Okay, so this is the simplest form to use init directive. Okay, then third is ng model. The ng model directive is used to bind the AngularJS application data values with input controls of HTML. Okay, so how it can bind with the HTML input controls, that we can see. We have started the paragraph and there we have mentioned one line, enter your name, and then the input is taken as input type equals to text, ng model equals to name. So whatever the requirement you are giving here is of type text, means you are asked to enter the name, so the name will be having a type as text and ng model is given as name. Okay, so it will bind the values of AngularJS application data to HTML input controls. Means here you already stated as the type text, but you need to bind that values of AngularJS application to HTML. So you have used the ng model directive and provided their value as name. Okay, and then you have closed the paragraph tag. So automatically there will be a binding between this AngularJS application data as well as in the HTML input as well. Okay, then the fourth is ng repeat. This ng repeat directive repeats HTML elements for each item in collection. We'll start it with OL tag and li ng repeat equals to country in countries. Okay, after that we have written in double curly braces country dot name and close that double curly braces and li tag as well, OL tag as well. So what ng repeat will do, it will repeat the directives the HTML element provide for each item in collection. Okay, the AngularJS directives are HTML attributes with ng prefix as told before, and the ng init directive initializes AngularJS application variables. The AngularJS example we can see here. We have used a div ng app ng init in a single directive. Okay, ng init is given first name equals to John, the value for the variable is given as John. Then in paragraph we have taken the input statement, the name is, and we have used the span tag. In span we are defining ng dash pine equals to first name. Here we are only calling the variable name. Okay, and close the span tag as well as paragraph tag and div tag. So the output will be the name is John. Here we can see how the program is executing or the application is executing. You have defined the name is, the paragraph tag we have given statement the name is, and we are taking that value of particular variable from with the ng bind, and we are calling the first name variable. Okay, and the first name variable is started with the ng init directive and it is given value as John. So that will be your output. The output will be with the your output statement the name is and the value for variable first name, that is John. Okay, so the output will be the name is John. This is the simplest example for AngularJS. In exam you may got question like list and explain various directives in AngularJS. It can be asked for 4 marks. Second question, define simple AngularJS example by explaining various directives in AngularJS. Okay, so at that time you have to provide all the directives that I have explained now. That means all this ng app, ng init, ng model, ng repeat plus this example you can write down. Okay, so while writing the example as well you can define in brackets or in boxes like which particular directive is defined or which particular directive is playing particular role. Okay, then we'll move forward with AngularJS expressions. This is also a very important topic. There can be again the question for explain AngularJS expressions with suitable example. Then you have to provide a program, small program. It can also be used for 4 marks. Okay, so the expressions are used to bind application data to HTML. Expressions are written inside double braces like double curly brace expression and end of double curly braces. Okay, you can see in the previous ng repeat, there we have used the country dot name in the double brace. Okay, so here we are expressing something, so we have used that expression inside double curly braces. Okay, then the expressions in AngularJS are particularly binding the data to HTML. The expressions are resolved by Angular and the result is returned back to where the expression is written. Okay, then it displays the data written inside the braces. The expressions are the JavaScript code snippets located inside the bindings. The expressions behave in same way as ngbind directives. Okay, so the expressions we can say the JavaScript code snippets located inside the bindings. These are nothing but the JavaScript code snippets that are inside the binding. And when how we define the binding with ngbind directives. Okay, so they behave similar to ngbind directives, that is ngbind is equals to expression. Okay, then there are few behavioral types like you can use these expressions using numbers, using strings, using object or using array. So we'll see one by one how it is defined. So the using numbers, you can write like in paragraph expense on books. So this is your statement and you are writing the expression in double brackets like cost into quantity and outputting as rupees in rupees. Okay, so expression is given in double quotes. Expense of books will be calculated by cost and quantity multiplication. Okay, so how to use it in double bracket, it is written. Then if you want to write the expression using string, then you have to write it as follow. We can see we start the paragraph tag hello and in double brace we have given the expression. So the expression here is fname plus double quotes blank space double quote close plus lname. Okay, so while writing strings we always follow that plus sign, right? And if it is the ending, we'll again start with plus sign and the variable name. So here we are having two variables fname and lname and we want to concatenate both, so accordingly we have defined it within the curly braces. Okay, so you can see how it is written. Then it will output if we are giving fname as John and lname as any John Bio, so the output will be John and it will concatenate it with the Bio as well. Okay, then the third part is using object. So if you want to define the expression with the object, you can write it as here we have started the paragraph with roll number, statement, and the object is used as expression, like in double curly braces, student dot roll number. Okay, you have already used in many programs these types, but how to use it in AngularJS, that is just a matter of change. Okay, so student dot roll number is the object and you are expressing it as expression, so you have to write it inside double curly bracket. Then using array, so using array you can define it as, if you want to define the marks of math, so you will start the expression with double curly brace marks of 3 and will end that particular expression and paragraph 2. Okay, so this is basic and very easiest way to define the expressions. Okay, so with example we can see as AngularJS expressions already told as they are written in double brackets, and AngularJS will output data exactly where the expression is written. Okay, you have to keep in mind the output will be at the statement where the input statement is written, or the where expression is written. Okay, so you can see in the program I have written that expression, my first expression, and 5 plus 5. So I'm having the output tag exactly in front of that. Okay, so we'll see the example. We have started the HTML and script tag with src. I provided the Angular link and end of the tag. Start the body tag. ng app directive is used, and my first expression in paragraph, and in double braces I have written the expression. So expression is 5 plus 5. So output will be at the exactly where the expression is written. So I have got that output. Okay, after closing my all the remaining tags, that is div, body and html, and we'll get the output at the expressions place. Okay, expression where the expression is written. Okay, so this is about the expressions. So before moving to controllers, we will see the basic difference between AngularJS expressions and JavaScript expressions. I will just revise you once. So AngularJS expressions can be written inside HTML, and JavaScript expressions cannot be written inside HTML. Okay, they can be written separately. Then second point, the AngularJS expression do not support conditionals, loops and exceptions. Okay, while JavaScript expressions are made up of all these conditional statements, loops and exceptions. We have seen them thoroughly while studying the JavaScript codes. Okay, then the third point is it supports filters. AngularJS support filters, but the JavaScript expressions does not support any filters. Fourth point to be focused is AngularJS expressions contain literals, operators and variables, okay, while JavaScript expressions also contain the literals, operators and variables. So these are basic points that you have to keep in mind while using the JavaScript expressions plus AngularJS expressions. Okay, because expressions we are defining with the same way, just a method is in quite different manner, like you are defining here the expressions in double curly braces. Okay. So now we'll move to the third part of this session, that is controllers. The AngularJS controller is a heart of Angular application. We have also seen the MVC architecture in last session. So there also the controller was overviewing all the model and view part. So it was controlling the whole application. So in similar way, AngularJS controllers are the heart of Angular application, and they control the flow of data from model part to view part. The data is taken from the view part as the input by the controller, then it processes the data and sends back to the view part, that is HTML part, that is being displayed to the user. The controller consists of core business logic. These are the JavaScript objects which hold attributes and functions. The controller can be defined in an Angular application using a directive known as ng-controller. Till now we have seen the directives. Okay, so if you want to use that controller as directive, we will use it as ng-controller. Okay, and as told, it consists of core business logic and the JavaScript object. It is a JavaScript object which holds attributes and functions. So it will be holding functions, attributes both at the same time. Then it uses $scope as a parameter. $scope are the objects that communicate with view and expose model to the view. Okay. So we can define that ng controller as shown below. div ng app equals to my app. The ng app name is given here as my app, and ng controller equals to my ctrl. Okay, that is controller. So this is the simplest way to include ng controller in your AngularJS application. There can be definitely a question for controller part in your exam. So we'll see the example, but before that, few things. The AngularJS modules define AngularJS application, and AngularJS controllers control AngularJS applications. So you have to focus on the difference between these two statements. The AngularJS modules, what they do, they will define the AngularJS application. Okay, you got it? The modules will define application, and this application is controlled by the AngularJS controller. Then the ng app directive defines the application, and the ng controller directive defines the control. These three things are must in your AngularJS controller part. While answering this question, any question related to AngularJS controller, the answer must contain these three lines. Okay, so revise and keep it in mind. Okay. Actually, the controller can be defined in two ways, like defining it as an application module, or you can also define it as JavaScript function. Okay, so we'll see the steps. So before that, we'll see the example how to use that AngularJS example and AngularJS controller. So we have started the ng app with my app name and ng controller with my controller. Then the first name is taken with the input type text and ng model as first name. Similarly, the last name variable is defined with ng model last name, and the full name is holding the expression. Okay, so expression is first name and last name. Okay, so the directive tag is closed there. Then after starting the script, we can define the variables, and we can call them the variable app, where app equals to angular.module, and parameters passed are my app, comma empty block. Okay, empty box with the indices. Okay, like your array. The app.controller we'll call the controller. Okay, here we have used the variable app. Okay, and using that variable we are calling the controller. So app.controller will call the my control named controller. Okay, so it will call the controller which is having value or name as my control, comma functions dollar scope. As already told, the controller uses scope as a parameter, and scope objects are used to communicate with view and model parts. Okay, then dollar scope dot first name John and dollar scope dot last name Doi. Okay, so it is communicating with your model plus view part. Okay, and it will display. Okay, so here closing that script tag, and we can see the output as first name as John, last name Doi, and full name is concatenated text that we have written in the expression as string. Okay, so the full name is John Doi. So this is the simplest example of controller. The question can be asked for explain the controller with example. So while writing the example, that will be a better idea if you are defining particular directives by giving numbers, or by simply writing about particular directive. For example, where you have used the ng app, thereby showing arrow you can write what ng app is doing here, ng controller, what ng controller is doing here. Okay, or if you have used that variable app. Okay, so there you can define, we have created the app module here. Okay, so controller app dot controller, we have used the next line, so that can be defined as we have created a controller here. Okay, so that will be a better idea if you are defining the whole process by numbers or by writing some text about all the directives. So that is a very good option to get the clear idea of your example as well, and it will be beneficial for your marks. Okay, then I have already told you the example variables, like I have given you idea how to write those variables expressions or variables, how to explain them, like what ng app is doing, what ng controller is doing. So next, in the next part, I have actually written here, you can see that the AngularJS modules define the application. Okay, so the application is defined using var app angular.module my app and empty block. Then AngularJS controller control applications. Here actually we have defined, created a module. Okay, the module name here we have given is app. Okay, then the variables that I used with the scope parameter are scope dot first name, that are actually calling the variables that are already defined with the ng modeling. Okay, that we have used in the first part of your code. Okay, so this is all about the example of AngularJS controller. We can see the ng controller my controller directive is applied to the div element, while my controller is the name of controller. Okay, and inside div element we have specified the expressions as well. Okay, so expression is having as first name and last name, so you have used here string directives. Okay, we have used the expression as string. Then after creating module, we have added a controller function using the controller method. Okay, so controller method we have defined here app.controller, that is also shown here. app.controller, and we are calling it and the first parameter should be the name of controller, and second parameter should be the function for the parameter, and that function is followed with the scope parameter. Okay, the controller function includes scope parameter which will be injected by the AngularJS framework. So this is all about AngularJS controllers. Okay, so in today's session we have seen three parts, that is AngularJS directives, that include the directives like ng app, ng init, ng model and ng repeat. In second part we have seen AngularJS expressions, that expressions can be written in four ways, like using numbers, using strings, using object, using array. Okay, we have also seen example for the same, and AngularJS controllers, how the controllers are included in the AngularJS application, that we have seen with the help of example, and the example is also explained with all the directives. So this is all about today's session. In the next session we will see the filters, tables, modules, forms that are used for AngularJS application. Okay, these are actually the tools that are helping out to make the application in easiest way. Okay, and it is also for the as per user view of displaying it. Okay, so we'll meet in the next session with the filters, tables, modules and forms used in AngularJS. Till then, revise all these things that I have used in this session and make your preparations a better manner. Okay? Till then, take care. Bye bye.